guys, what's up? With all the fires on the West Coast, it's been pretty smoky here in Central Oregon. So what do you do when you can't take your dog outside and you can't go for a walk? Maybe it's too hot or too smoky or something else. My husband and I took an afternoon last weekend to host a Zoom chat with some of my clients just to talk about healthy alternatives to taking our dogs for a walk. If you're new here, like and subscribe to our channel where we give you tips and tricks to energize and strengthen the relationship between you and your dog. Okay, let's join in on the conversation.
Is your dog going crazy in all this smoke? We are going to be chatting today about what you can do to help fulfill your dog's needs inside. So let's go ahead and get started.
Awesome. So my name is Erica Pasha. For those of you that know me, I am the head trainer and the owner of the Kind Canine Pet Services here in Bend, Oregon. This is my husband, Eric Pasha. He is what I like to call a dog enthusiast. He works a lot with my clients and does a lot of the fun work. He's often the distractions in our training scenarios. So I like to give Eric fun jobs like handling stuffed dogs and riding scooters around, and he gets to be the distraction off in the distance while I'm working with my clients. So he's been a lot of help and a lot of fun to work with.
That's right, that's right. So if you are here in Central Oregon or maybe anywhere on the West Coast right now, you may be looking around and outside and seeing quite a lot of smoke, right? For us, we're limiting our exposure outside to just a few minutes at a time, and really for our pups, we're keeping them inside, not taking any walks, really because it's unhealthy for them to be inside right now. So we're going to talk about some of those things. If you're like us, our pups start to go a little crazy after a couple of days without taking a walk. But we're going to talk through some of those times where it's really not safe or healthy to walk, or maybe you just don't want to do a walk today. So what are some of those alternative things that you can do to be successful during this time? So let's really get into it and dive into the problem here. So you may be thinking, okay, so my dog can't go outside right now, so what? Is that big of an issue? Or maybe you're thinking about, well, I can still take my dog out. That's no problem. Well, let's take a look here. So what's the issue? Thinking about that first one, well, if we're going to be skipping that walk here, that's a really big and positive part of our dog's life and our dog's day. So taking your dog for a walk provides them, of course, with that physical exercise, but it's also mental stimulation when it comes to sniffing and some of those other alternative and really healthy dog behaviors. And also, gosh, we've been cooped in a large part of this year with a global pandemic going on. It's nice to just get a change of environment from time to time.
And I do think it's important to note too that a lot of people view walks as an opportunity for physical exercise, and while they can be an opportunity for physical exercise, they're not typically high intensity. So if you take your dog out for 20 minutes and say, oh, well, they got a good workout in, walking around the block for 20 minutes isn't really going to get that physical exercise your dog needs. So if you're looking for that kind of exercise, you're going to want more of an off-leash experience in a contained area where you can actually get them going, get them running, get their body moving. Whereas a walk is more of like an opportunity for their brain to kind of explore the environment and get stimulation that way.
Yeah. That's right, that's right. And so you may be on the flip side of the coin and say, we're just going to take them out anyways, right? Well, walking your dogs really can be dangerous when the air quality is too poor or hazardous. If it's not safe for you to go out, certainly not safe for the dogs to go out either. But there are other times when that might happen as well, right? Maybe it's too hot, maybe it's too cold. And so we want to really think about and dive into there are opportunities or times where we can't walk the dogs, right? Maybe it's too hot outside. We like to think, 90 degrees, maybe 95 degrees or up. That pavement really gets too hot to walk our dogs on anything, and we've got to keep them inside. In addition to that, maybe it's too cold. If you're here in Central Oregon, we skip a number of walks in December, January, February, just because snow just dumped on the ground. And if we're looking in the teens or even lower, gosh, it's miserable for us to be out, and it's miserable for our dogs to be out too. But here's the reality of the situation. Maybe you're just not feeling a walk today, right? This has nothing to do with the conditions outside. It's got everything to do with what you're experiencing as part of maybe a hectic day. And so I want to assure you, it's okay if your dog skips a walk on a certain day, right? There is absolutely not a necessity to take your dog out each and every day, and we're going to talk about some of those alternatives that you can do to make sure that their needs are still being met, even if you decide to skip the dog for whatever, or skip the walk for whatever reason that is. So think about this. When we approach the idea of walk versus not walk, or something else versus doing a second piece, we really have to consider that our dogs have needs, right? You can see here on our presentation there are biological needs, there's emotional needs, there's social needs to interact with other dogs, there's training needs to help your dog learn how to be safe and interact in their environment, and then of course there are these cognitive needs that are really getting at what your dog needs to be happy and healthy. So when we're going to be really focusing the effort on our presentation today is going to be those first two tiers, so that biological need as well as some of those emotional needs. And so today we'll focus on those first two tiers of the hierarchy of dog needs there. So go ahead and talk about enrichment.
Yeah, so if you're one of my clients, you know I give a big spiel about enrichment right when we first start working together, because it is just the core component of meeting your dog's needs. When we were looking at that hierarchy, you saw that that first level of the pyramid is biological and the second level of the pyramid is emotional. If you're not meeting those two needs, you can't possibly meet the needs up at the top. When I was an elementary school teacher, I use this analogy a lot. I had a lot of students that would come to school that didn't even eat breakfast before they came. And I don't know about you, but I can't really focus well when I'm hungry, and I never expected my students to do that either. I can't put a complex math equation in front of them and say, solve this, when they haven't had proper nutrition for that day. So this is really kind of serving that same foundation for our dogs. We can't expect them to learn in all of these difficult environments and train at these high levels if they're not even getting their basic needs met. So enrichment kind of helps us to do that. So this definition of enrichment I've talked about a lot with you guys. Enrichment is a set of activities centered around fulfilling your dog's core instinctual, biological, and emotional needs. Now, when you're a human, right, we have basic biological and emotional needs. We have to have food, water, shelter, and when we're talking about emotional needs, that need for belongingness, for dogs, that's working with them. That's actively working with them, doing things to meet those emotional needs. Go ahead. Thank you. So why is enrichment important? Well, we've talked about it a little bit. We've talked about how it kind of serves as that foundation for our dogs, but also I like to mention a few other things as well. It provides a constructive outlet for natural dog behaviors, meaning chewing, sniffing, all of those things our dogs like to do. Licking is a big one for my dogs. It gives them outlets for that aren't in ways that we don't like. I talk about this a lot as like proactive behavior management. So if you don't want your dog to chew up your shoes, make sure you give them other things to chew on that they want to chew on. Otherwise, they're going to get that need to chew out on things you don't like, which is obviously not ideal. It redirects unwanted behaviors, including destruction, and it meets your dog's biological and emotional needs. One thing I like to mention is that we take dogs into our homes and we live a really human-centered lifestyle, being that we are humans, and we have very different needs from our dogs, or than our dogs, I should say. So when we're trying to put them into our box, into our homes, and say, this is the way that you should be acting, and these are the rules that which you should live by, we're ignoring a lot of their natural instincts and desires. And I think that it's important to be sensitive to that and be empathetic to the fact that our dogs have really important needs that we are responsible for meeting as their guardians. So that's just a little thing I like to mention right there. So now I'm going to have Eric talk a little bit about physical exercise.
So you might be asking, well, we've got the emotional and biological needs. Isn't exercise an important part of our dog's life? We're going to say yes, absolutely. But there are some common myths that come along with having dog exercise. So you may have heard, well, I'll just go ahead and run them until they're all tired out. Or that a tired dog is a happy dog. Or maybe exercise is all that they need. And it's a little bit more nuanced than that, right? While physical exercise is important, it's not the only important thing, right? In addition to that, used together with mental enrichment, physical exercise can really be successful when it comes to meeting your dog's needs over the long term. And so there are a few different ways that we can think about enriching our dogs' lives. And for our examples here, there is indoor and outdoor pieces. Of course, for part of today's presentation, we're going to focus on the indoor pieces, but we'll kind of talk about, after everything's said and done, some of those activities that you can do to be successful outside as well. And so, of course, there are these food-based pieces, right? Stuffing a Kong, putting peanut butter inside and maybe freezing it. Using puzzle toys and puzzle feeders, using licking mats, giving them chewing opportunities like a rolled cow cheek or the bully sticks that we use with our dogs. Another piece is a big part of that's training and play, right? That's enrichment that we can provide as a bond to help increase that bond with our dogs. And so we think a lot about that. A couple examples would be like trick training or using a flirt pole.
So for example, yesterday, Chester and Nia need a little bit of extra interaction time with me, and so I sat down with them and I have these little inflatable, they're like little pods kind of, and I was teaching them how to station on them, so how to put one paw on and put pressure on it, and then how to balance with two paws, and then I got two pods out and I would have them balance on them separately. So I was having some just interactive, fun training time with them, teaching them something new, the skill of balancing and body awareness. And so that was really fun for them. They passed out right after that for a few hours.
That's right. And so, of course, sniffing walks can be a fantastic way to think about enriching your dog's life too. Again, not right now, that's an outside activity, but it really helps if you give them opportunities to sniff, opportunities to explore their environment. You're actually meeting some of those physical and mental needs at the same time. And so Erica is going to talk about what it looks like, some of these actual pieces when it comes to like some food-based enrichment.
Yeah, so I give my dogs tons of food-based enrichment. I talk a lot about this. I actually don't feed up out of food bowls anymore. I find more creative ways to feed my dogs, and I don't necessarily just feed them at meal times either. I think about how I can use their daily food allotment every day more creatively in a way that better meets their needs, rather than putting it in a bowl, giving it to them and saying, here you go, scarf it down. I want to think about how I can be more intentional with that food. So I could take their allotment of kibble for the day or some of the wet food we use or whatever I want to feed them, and I'll incorporate it into these different activities. So right here I've got a licky mat, I've got a Kong, I've got what we call a snuffle mat, giving your dog an opportunity to search for food and all those little pieces of fabric. And I have the Roughwear Not-A-Rock, very similar to the Wobbler and all the other big puzzle feeders people buy. You put the kibble in there, it comes out the little hole as they nudge it around and drop it off of stuff. Really fun. And then we've got the beef cheek rolls there in the corner. These all serve a different purpose for our dogs. They meet their needs in different ways. So Kongs and licky mats are great for when your dog has like just a ton of energy and you need to channel it into something that's going to calm them down. Because the act of licking is a self-soothing behavior. So if we can give our dogs prolonged experiences of licking, it often will calm them down for longer periods of time. So for example, with our Kongs, we'll do a stuffing for a dog that's never done a Kong before. We might put a little bit of peanut butter on the top. And then for a dog that's a little more experienced, we'll put a little bit more stuffing down into the bottom. And then for a dog that's really, really good at Kongs, we'll cram it full as we can, stick it in the freezer for 24 hours, and then they've got an hour's worth of licking later. And when you're talking about an hour's worth of licking for a dog, that's something that just knocks them right out. I mean, they'll do that for an hour and they usually fall asleep right after that. Last night I gave one Nia, actually, right before we were going to bed, and I had to go visit one of my pet sitting clients, and she licked one in her crate until it was gone, and then we just forgot because she just fell asleep. Like she was just asleep in her crate for 2 hours after that, and we're like, oh, Nia's in her crate, she's sleeping, okay. So I love using food-based enrichment. It just gives them a more well-rounded experience with their food and lets them problem solve in a bunch of different ways. So then obviously you can also do opportunities for active enrichment, doing training and play with your dogs. With my dogs, they both really enjoy chasing. They're both herding breeds. If you don't know my dogs, they're both Australian Shepherds. They love to chase. It's pretty much their favorite thing. So we have the flirt pole pictured here, which is a giant cat teaser for dogs. You just put a big old toy on the end of a rope on a stick, and you can use it all around in a big room, and they get super excited. We've done a lot of throwing of different stuffed toys. We don't generally use balls in the house because Chester has pretty big ball feelings.
That's right.
He gets a little overwhelmed by the sight of a ball, so we like to keep that for outside. And then of course we do tug with them, and they have some rules and parameters around tug just so it makes it an efficient game. For example, they have a good drop it and a good take, so that, you know, if we do need the game to stop, we can ask them to drop it, we can put it away, and give them something else to do to calm them down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's get creative. I don't like to just go out and spend a bunch of money on enrichment toys. In fact, some of the best enrichment I've done with my dogs is just with crap I have lying around the house. So for example, my pet sitting client that I'm working with right now, it's a little dog named Hemi. She's a German Shepherd mix. She needs a lot of mental stimulation, being a German Shepherd mix. So for her meals, I've been taking all of her toys and I've been shoving them in a cardboard box, and then I've been scattering all of her kibble around her toys. So she has to pull her toys out in order to get to the kibble, and usually what she does at the end is she'll like dump the whole box over. So she'll get through all the toys and then she'll just throw her box in the air and all the rest of the kibble comes out. Really, really fun for her. Some other things I've done, I've taken little toilet paper tubes and I've closed an end of it, put some food in it, then closed the other end, so they almost make like toilet paper roll burritos. So you can kind of hide those in different places all around the house, and the dog can go searching for them. That's a lot of fun. I've made a lot of DIY puzzle feeders. So I don't like to, again, spend like $20 on a puzzle feeder when I can take the giant cardboard tube that one of my posters came in, cut some holes in it, and then give it to my dog to roll around the room. I mean, that serves the same exact purpose, and I didn't have to spend any money. So if you think about kind of your dog and what they like to do, the different kinds of problems they like to solve, how they like to work for their food, you can create a lot of these do-it-yourself enrichment opportunities. There are a few groups on Facebook too. I don't have them listed here, but Canine Enrichment and Beyond the Bowl Canine Enrichment have a ton of ideas that you can look at. So if you're curious for some inspiration. So when we're thinking about building these enrichment activities, we can start by thinking by sense. So we can use our dog's sense of smell to create different activities that they can use their nose for. There's a lot of different nose work games that you can do with this. Find It is listed here. It's one of our favorites. We'll have our dog stationed on a bed or in a sit. We'll hide some food around the room, and then we'll say, find it, and they'll go walking around the room trying to find their food. Really, really easy to teach. You can also just scatter feed a bunch of food. If you toss it around the room, your dogs will go hunting for it all around the room. That's a really good workout for their nose. We can also use a lot of brain games as well. When I'm talking about brain games, usually I'm talking about ways that we're interacting with our dog, helping them learn how to problem solve, helping them learn new skills. So you can do that through trick training, just as we talked about earlier. There's a lot of different tricks that you can teach your dogs. If you need a little bit of inspiration, I did just do a new trick training video on YouTube. Just gives you a few simple things you can teach. And then you, of course, can use their sense of taste. Most dogs love food, and if they don't love their kibble, you can use something they like to create a sensory experience around taste. So then when we're thinking about all these different kinds of foods we can use, like I said, you don't have to just use their kibble. You can get really creative. When we're talking about wet food, you might do like canned dog food. You could do peanut butter, mashed banana, applesauce, cottage cheese. There's so many options. And if, by the way, if you're ever wondering if something is safe for your dog, if you have an Alexa or a Google Home, you can easily just say, hey Alexa, is this safe for my dog? And she'll usually tell you, and if she's worried about it, she'll tell you to look it up. So
That's right.
it's a pretty safe bet most of the time. You can use a lot of different high and low value food. So if I'm working in my house where my dogs have done a lot of their training, they're pretty fluent in most of their behaviors, I'm going to use lower value food like their kibble, because I'm not in a pretty distracting situation. They'll probably take their kibble and work for it. Whereas if I'm maybe in the garage or the backyard or something that's a little bit more distracting, I would be considering more higher value food. When we're talking about higher value food, I'm not necessarily talking about all training treats. Training treats are not all considered equal. If you go to the store and you buy the package that says training treats, there's a high likelihood that they have a lot of different ingredients. When I'm talking about high value food, I'm talking about treats that are like majority meat content, like at least 85% meat, so that the dog is really, really, really excited to eat it. It's higher value to them.
So let's go ahead and talk about getting playful with our enrichment.
All right. So I mentioned earlier, our dogs are both herding breeds. They both love to chase. Herding breeds are biologically built for that instinct to chase, so I like to give them opportunities to do that. Maybe not necessarily chase me around the house, but if I've got a toy that they really like, I might run around and kind of get their legs moving, get their blood flowing. I love, love, love playing tug with my dogs. As contrary to some popular belief in the past about 10 years, a lot of people think tug makes their dogs more aggressive. I think it's a really great way to provide an outlet for your dog, especially right now when they're not getting a whole lot of physical activity. Tug can be a great way to give them that activity they need and teach them a few skills. Like I said, I've taught my dogs take and drop by just teaching them tug. I haven't taught those out of that context. I've only taught it in that game, and now those behaviors are really fluent. And then of course you can use the game Find It. And I like to get really kind of silly with this. Sometimes I'll hide their food up high on the cat tower and they have to figure out how to get up there and get it. Sometimes I'll tuck it into the couch cushions, make it a little bit harder to find. Just get playful, get creative, make them work for it a little bit.
So for those of us who are here in the room with us, I'm really curious, what kind of things are resonating with you and what kind of stuff are you excited to try first with your dogs?
Yeah, Julie, I know that you do a lot with Ollie with regards to enrichment. What are some of your favorite things you've done with him?
Well, certainly the flirty pole.
Yeah, that flirt pole. Yeah, I love that.
That is a go-to toy for him. So right now, that's actually been a real lifesaver. We've moved all the cars out of the garage, and so that's where we're doing our running, because he's just like a bull in a china shop in the house. So definitely the flirty toy, and then some of the enrichment games are just folding up his kibble in, the squares of denim and stuffing them in a ball that's got holes. Or I showed you, Erica, that volcano thing that came with the dinosaur.
So cute.
Ripped up, but for sure he loves sticking his nose in things and pulling things out. So I think those have been probably two of the most successful things. And then we tried to start setting up a mini obstacle course, which really wore him out because he didn't know what I was trying to ask him to do. But he went to sleep after that supposed play session.
There you go. I love that you've rearranged your environment, like you said, taking the cars out of the garage. They're just taking up space in there, right? When we're a little cooped
we can't
up
go anywhere.
And so you've just changed your environment around a little bit to make a little bit of physical exercise inside. I love it. How about the rest of us? Anything that we've done in the past that we've loved, or anything from this list that you're looking forward to trying?
I know Bo really likes, we got one of those Chuck It toys, but it has the holes in it. So some of those balls have holes in it. So I put kibble in it and treats, and he pushes it around with his nose until he can get them all out. He likes that a lot. And then we have just like a little tiny ball on a rope that we just throw, and he likes to just chase it. Sometimes he brings it back, sometimes he doesn't, but he's learning.
Yeah, and you guys have that great big living room. I bet that's really nice for that.
Yeah, and playful. The two dogs together playing, so just letting them have some time to play, that helps a lot too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Jennifer, how about for you?
Yeah, my dogs have been playing a lot more also. It's strange to see them in such good moods. That's been very surprising to me, since we haven't been out and about as much. We've been doing some trick training, And I've been pairing 2 tricks, which is we've been working on a crawl and a backwards moonwalk. So
Oh,
I have
fun.
them crawl one way across the room and then moonwalk back. And they
Really?
just love it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness
Super
gracious.
fun.
And that's the kind of like hard, challenging tricks that you've really got to break up into maybe multiple training sessions, maybe multiple weeks, and so you can really get some mileage out of 1 or 2 more difficult tricks. That's awesome.
Yeah, especially because you have to sort of start from the lure and then fade the lure. I mean, it takes months to do that kind of thing from start to finish. So when you've got a lot of time on your hands.
For sure.
That's right. That's right. I love it. So we are coming to the end of our time here, but to recap, here's what we're thinking about right now, right? Every dog has natural canine needs. These are things that you can't get out of, right? We really focused on some of those biological and emotional needs here today. And so when those needs aren't met, unwanted behaviors start to happen, right? That might be destruction. That might be just general anxiety, general hype that comes to your dogs kind of running around your house being crazy.
And you might even see, for those of you that do have multiple dogs in your home, you might see them kind of get at each other a little bit more. We will see them play a lot more. Of course, they're going to be interacting a lot more, but they also could get on each other's nerves a little bit more, just like we do when we're stuck in our homes in quarantine for 6 months.
That's right. That's right. So we really have a responsibility as dog owners to find alternative ways to meet those needs, of course, leading to a happier and healthier dog, but also kind of a calm household for us. Yeah. And so I'll let you talk about this a little bit, but a parting thought, what does it look like in your household when you're actually meeting that dog's needs? What do you think?
Well, right now I'm looking at my dogs and they are sleeping. Chester's over here laying on his treadmill, which obviously isn't what the treadmill is for, but the dogs like to use that as a bed when they're relaxing. And Nia's here sleeping at my feet. So I know that throughout the morning, they've had enough activities and enough enrichment to relax them. And throughout the day, I'll probably see more of this. I might see a little bit of spurt of energy later in the day when they play. But then ultimately, when they lay back down and they just kind of take that deep breath, I'll know that their needs have been met.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So you want to talk a little bit about what you do, kind of what your day-to-day, what your week looks like? Yeah,
so typically when there's not this much smoke in the air, I'm offering, go ahead, one-on-one training sessions with all of my clients. That's something that I think is really important. There are some dogs that it's just really hard to do group classes, and there are some behaviors that you don't work on in group classes, and that's the kind of stuff that I really am passionate about. So that's why I focus on private in-home one-on-one training. I also offer training walks and play dates. So in place of my training walks right now, what I'm doing with a lot of my clients is I'm going to their house and I'm taking that 30-minute training walk and I'm instead playing with their dog, doing trick training with their dog, providing them opportunities to get these outlets rather than going out on our normal walks. And then I've also got some videos to get you started. So I've got a YouTube channel that we just got up and running and I'm posting every other Tuesday. I am about to record my next video on your first week with your shelter dog. So that'll be my next video that goes up there. I'm really excited about. You can find me, I post regularly on Facebook and Instagram. Those are my 2 main social media outlets. You can find me on the Kind Canine on YouTube. And then coming soon, Eric and I are really excited to start a podcast.
That's right.
And sit down and we have a lot of conversations about dogs and kind of dog training philosophy when we're just out on our around the house. And I think it's time we actually sit down and record some of those and share them with people because I think there's a lot of value there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We are so appreciative that you've joined us for a little bit this afternoon. Before we go here, want to respond to your questions. Any questions that came to mind as we went through the presentation?
I had a question. What air quality is going to be okay for us to take them out there?
My line
for walks.
Yeah, I mean for like short 15 to 20 minute walks, I would say anything for unhealthy for sensitive groups, which I think is 150, I think is what I had looked up. So anything under that, I would feel comfortable with short walks with my own dogs. ultimately that's your call, what you think you're comfortable with, but that's kind of my line. And when I'm talking about my sessions with clients and my walks and things like that, that's going to be the line that I go by. So if it's 150 or less, it's probably fine for short amounts of time.
Yeah, and I would say if you're uncomfortable outside, that's definitely further than I would want to have our dogs out. So right now with, gosh, that AQI over 400, 500, we're letting them out for potty breaks, and that's about it, right? And we usually let them out on potty breaks for 15 or 20 minutes if they can. Well, we're limiting those to 2 or 3 minutes, get your business done and get back inside.
And I do want to mention too, I've seen a couple of things floating around in my dog training groups and a couple other groups I'm a part of that show masks for dogs, and they're basically like cloth muzzles that have an N95 air filter in the front. And while I think that the idea is good in some ways, I think that it ultimately can be harmful. So if you don't know much about muzzles, the cloth muzzles that are used by like groomers and vets and stuff for short-term use, the dog cannot eat, drink, or pant in those correctly, which can really be harmful to them. And so I have not seen any dogs wearing these masks. I don't know much about them, but looking at the design of the mask makes me really uncomfortable, knowing that the dog is not able to pant and regulate their heat correctly.
Yeah.
So that's just something to be mindful of. If you do start to see that pop up, something to be thinking about.
Yeah, that's a great consideration there.
Are there any other questions that we have?
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
One of the questions I had is about like playing the hiding treats and stuff around the house if you've got multiple dogs. My dogs are not big resource guarders, but I get a little bit nervous about having, 2 dogs hunting around for treats in the same space.
Totally. So I would stick to low value for stuff like that. So definitely sticking to kibble for things like that. If you don't have any issues with food aggression, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But something that we do, because we do have a dog that guards her food, not necessarily kibble, but when I'm using higher value food, we take an X pen, which is just a metal pen. We extend it across the room, and then they have 2 separate spaces to hunt on. So think about using your space a little bit more creatively. If they're comfortable being in separate rooms, you could do it in separate rooms behind a door. It's really up to you. We also have a baby gate in our house that creates 2 separate spaces. So there's a few different ways you can get creative with separation that way.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
You bet. Anything else on our mind right now as we're thinking about, gosh, dogs can't go outside. What do we do? Not jumping off the walls yet, hopefully.
Yeah.
I love that tip about licking. I didn't realize that the licking was such a relaxing behavior. We've been using fresh marrow bones, and then once they get all the meat off the outside of the marrow, then putting wet dog food and freezing those, and they can do it for an hour easily.
Yeah, and it's so great. I mean, I work with a lot of dogs who have like compulsive behaviors. So dogs that are like licking compulsively, and a lot of dogs will do it right before they go to sleep. So like when you're going to lay down for the night, they'll come jump in the bed and then they kind of just lick the pillow compulsively for like 15 minutes. That's a dog trying to calm itself down.
Okay.
So we can kind of artificially create that by giving them licking activities.
Right. We really feel like after a few minutes, they really get in the zone. So like kind of the fresh part of digging into a new Kong or a marrow bone is like get them hooked, and then gosh, they could go, depending on what you've got them in, they could go for 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, and it really is an opportunity to give you a break as the owner too.
And then if you're doing it for long periods of time, like we have when we haven't been able to go outside for a while, I'm rotating the fillings of all of those things to keep them interesting. So instead of using the same stuff every time I stuff a Kong, I'm mixing it up. I'm changing the proteins. I'm changing the brands of food I'm using. I'm changing the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients. I'm just trying to keep it interesting, right? Because if you give me a cheeseburger, for the first 3 days I get a cheeseburger for every meal, I'll be like, yeah, I love cheeseburgers. But then like on the 4th day, I've kind of had enough of cheeseburgers. So I like to, be sensitive to that with my own dogs, kind of keep it mixed up, keep them guessing.
It's good when you're working too. It's a win-win, right?
Especially maybe working from home now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a great point. Oh my goodness. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. This is kind of a new format that we're trying, and if folks like this and it's easy for us to kind of communicate some things in a timely manner here, we are all about that. But I'll let you take it out here.
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for being a part of this. We put this together in just a couple of days, and I think it's important for us all to have the information we need to make sure we don't go crazy and our dogs don't go crazy in this time that we're trapped inside. And I think there's so many people that are so deeply affected by what's going on that I just hope this little bit is helpful, because it's just hard right now. So everybody stay healthy, stay safe, don't inhale too much smoke, just stay safe.
There you have it. Enrichment can be a great way to meet our dog's needs and have a little fun while we're at it. What was your biggest takeaway from our discussion? Pop a comment down below and let's hear about it. See you next time. Bye for now.